It seems that nowadays a player signed from the French League is met with fear and suspicion. It's true that some players have certainly struggled since swapping France for England, but let's take a look at the last 15 years and the stars that the Premier League has taken from Ligue 1. 2004, Didier Drogba to Chelsea. Let's face it, back in 2004, Didier Drogba practically had to be wrestled to Stamford Bridge. The Ivorian loved his sole season at Marseille so much, where he bagged 32 goals as the club reached the UEFA Cup final at Newcastle's expense, that the prospect of fish and chips in West London was not so appealing. As we all know though, the £24 million purchase is now a god at Stamford Bridge, playing almost 400 games and somehow helping them win that Champions League. 2005, Michael ESSIEN to Chelsea. Yep, Chelsea scouts were still buried in France the following summer after the success of Drogba. To be fair, Michael ESSIEN wasn't much of a secret. My 93-year-old aunt probably knew how good he was, with the likes of Arsenal, Juventus and Manchester United all circling. Not Man City though, kids. They were still doing their shopping at the football version of Oxfam. Anyway, the 22-year-old Ghanaian midfielder ended up at Stamford Bridge in a £24.5 million deal, leaving Sir Alex Ferguson once again to curse out on missing to a club who 5 years earlier were signing Winston Bogarde on a free transfer. 2006, Patrice Evra to Manchester United. There we go, the first entry from Manchester United in this list and the first winter window signing too. When Patrice Evra turned up in January 2006, wearing the classic combination of turtleneck and half a dead sheep, there were many skeptics. His defending was almost as bad as his fashion sense when he first arrived, but he soon settled and began showing just why the club had paid Monaco £5.5 million for the Champions League finalist. He went on to stay for 8.5 seasons, resisting the urge to kick any fans, instead winning everything in sight. 2007, MALOUDA to Chelsea. I swear this isn't just a manifesto of Chelsea purchases under Roman Abramovich, alright? I think it's fair to say the Blues are having a bit of an episode in this transfer window. Peter Crouch, Ashley Barnes and Solomon Rondon. Come on now. It reminds me of the summer of 2007 when, despite all the money in the world, Abramovich for some reason sanctioned the freebie purchase of Steve Sidwell, Claudio Pizarro and Tal Ben Haim. To be fair, Florent MALOUDA was also shuffled through the door from Lyon for £13.5 million. A former teammate of both Drogba and ESSIEN, the Frenchman was a hit after initially struggling, bagging 15 goals during the 09-10 season as he won the double and helping the club to Champions League success. You won't find him nowadays though, he's playing his football in Luxembourg. 2008, SAMIR NASRI to Arsenal. Oh SAMIR, what could have been? Hailed as the next Zidane, then again so was Giroud, Gorkov and about any other French midfielder able to string two passes together over the previous 15 years. NASRI swapped Marseille for Arsenal in July 2008 for a reported £12 million. Yeah, fair enough, he shone at the Emirates before graduating from Arsenal University to get a job in Manchester, as was the style at the time. As far as the Zidane comparisons go, I'd say Zizou would probably choke on his cereal. Then again, he's probably got other things to worry about right now. 2009, Gabriel Obertan to Manchester United. Yes, I know the title said stars, but hey, Gabriel Obertan was hailed as the next big thing back in 2009. It didn't quite work out like that for the Frenchman at Old Trafford following his £3 million move from Bordeaux. It didn't quite help that the previous winger who just left the club was one of the best midfielders in world football. Not only did Obertan spend his time at the club looking like he wanted to return to his home planet half the time, but the basics of controlling a football and getting a shot on target looked beyond him. Even Bebe, the man who was supposedly picked up off the streets, outshone him. 14 league appearances later, he was dumped on the unwitting Newcastle, who had become the dumping ground for Manchester United's garbage. 2010, Hatem Ben Arfa to Newcastle. Speaking of Newcastle, they were always going to feature here, what with Graham Carr's penchant for the French players. Yes, many of the French contingent have excelled in recent years, but for every Yohan Caboy there's also an Emmanuel Riviere, a player who I'm convinced won a contract on a bet or something. Ben Arfa had long been tipped for stardom, having risen through the ranks at Lyon alongside Karim Benzema before lighting up the Stade Velodrome at Marseille. So when newly promoted Newcastle managed to persuade the exciting speedster to come on loan back in the summer of 2010, the Geordies could hardly contain their excitement. And then Nigel de Jong put an end to everybody's hopes and dreams by eating the Frenchman for breakfast after 4 games. That was the end of that. For now. 2011, Gervinho to Arsenal. As is clear by now, not all of these players were successes. Big things were expected of Gervinho when he arrived at Arsenal for £10.8 million in 2011 as part of the exodus from Lille's title-winning side. The Ivorian was sucked into Joey Barton's games in his debut, got sent off, ignored everybody's pleas to go to the barbers, and it all went downhill from there really, netting 11 goals in 63 games. 2012, Eden Hazard. Chelsea fans should probably still be thanking Didier Drogba because without him, they would not be watching Eden Hazard strut his stuff week in, week out. As we all know, the Ivorian won Chelsea the Champions League back in 2012, which is when the Belgian was at Lille weighing up his next move. Tottenham, Manchester City and Manchester United were all heavily linked, and let's be honest, he would have probably ended up in Manchester if the Blues hadn't pulled off their miracle win, considering they'd stumbled to an embarrassing 6th in the table, behind the Newcastle team with Danny Guthrie and Leon Best. Hazard was a £32 million buy and he's been worth every penny, scoring goals, winning leagues and beating up annoying ball boys. 2013, MAMADOU SAKHO to Liverpool. It seemed like big money when Liverpool paid PSG £18 million for MAMADOU SAKHO in September November 2013, and it was, so it just seems crazy that he was used so sparingly. He played 80 games in all competitions over 3 seasons at Anfield before falling out of favour under Jurgen Klopp and signing for Crystal Palace instead. 2014, Radamel Falcao to Manchester United. It didn't work out, but it was a superstar signing. Yes, Manchester United had bigger problems. They just conceded 4 at MK Dons, Januzaj was still on the payroll, they already had 3 top strikers and James Wilson. It wasn't a necessary acquisition, but Radamel Falcao on loan from Monaco seemed too good to pass up. But his injury had robbed him of something. 4 goals in 29 games, he was a pitifully expensive waste of time. 2015, Anthony Martial to Manchester United. Undeterred by getting stung by Monaco the previous summer, Manchester United returned to the same club in 2015 to sign Anthony Martial. Martial had only ever scored 15 career goals, quite an investment. Scoring against Liverpool on his debut was a way to hit the ground running. He scored 35 goals since. 2016, David Luiz to Chelsea. I'm not sure why David Luiz is still out in the cold at Chelsea. Everybody was confused when Chelsea brought him back from PSG last year for £34 million after seemingly running to the bank laughing after getting rid of him for £50 million. But he was influential in Chelsea's 3-man defence as they soared to the league title last season. The Brazilian has been marginalised this time out though. 2017, Alexandre LACAZETTE to Arsenal. The most amount of money any Premier League side is outright paid for a player from Ligue 1, with Arsenal paying Lyon an initial £46.5 million for a player who has long since been linked with Newcastle. But then again, he's French, so who wasn't? But he's not being left on the bench. Don't worry Alex, that just means Wenger likes you, doesn't it, Sanchez? Lacazette is well able to find the back of the net, having netted 100 league goals across 203 games for Lyon, and so far 9 in 24 appearances for the Gunners. But Wenger, just keep the man on the pitch. 2018, Guido Carrillo to Southampton. It's early days, but we have a Premier League signing from France, and no, I'm not talking about Terence Congolo to Huddersfield. Southampton are starved of goals, like a penguin in the Sahara Desert, so no pressure Guido Carrillo, a £19 million acquisition from Monaco, who as a striker has only scored 21 league goals in 95 games. Hey, at least it's better than Shane Long. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe.